Hi, everyone. It's Joey Hunter again, former doo-wop singer, actor, model, and co-president of Ford Models, bringing you the fabulous Karen Lee Grabowski, but we will call her Karen Lee for now. Karen is the former director of scouting at Elite and one of the best teachers of modeling that I know in the business. She's worked with lots of girls that went on to be, well, not famous, but working girls and made a lot of money in the business. So let me introduce you to Karen Lee. Karen, where are you? And right here. I get you on in a minute, Karen. There we are. To get on this podcast, and I don't know where she is. I had the same problem yesterday. Karen has joined the group.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Karen, I can't see you, but I hear you.
I can see you.
Oh, all right. Well, we're going to have to see what's happening here. Let's see. All right. Well, no matter what, I don't see you, but welcome. And do you like to be called Karen Lee? Am I correct?
Well, Lee is my middle name, and years ago I worked with two other Karens, and that's how I became Karen Lee.
Well,
Because
I like that name.
thank you. My mother gave it to me. And Grabowski was a name years ago that no one really could understand. So Karen Lee is who I became.
Are you from the South? Karen Lee's very Southern.
I am not. I'm from a small town in western Pennsylvania called Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Ah, it's close to Pittsburgh, right?
Yes, it is, about an hour north.
Yeah, I think I passed through it once going to Pittsburgh. Or maybe I got lost and found Newcastle.
It's northwest of Pittsburgh.
Tell us about you. How did you wind up a girl from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, or let's say Pittsburgh, winds up in New York City? How did that happen to you? Tell us about how you got started, what you did, and things like that. Karen, I don't know what happened. You froze. Did I shock you or something? Because you seem to be frozen on screen. Well, bear with us. We're having a little glitch here. This is the first time this has happened, but things do happen when technology goes wrong. But I know this is the second podcast this week. Here we go. Well, let's see if we could start this again. And we'll go right into Karen talking to us about her upbringing and how she wound up in the big city. And we'll see. I don't know what's happening. We've got lots of problems here. How well she joined?
Hi, are you there?
I'm here now.
Technical difficulties again.
Yeah, I know. But
so I didn't hear anything you said.
What I want to know is how you wound up a girl from New Carlisle, Pennsylvania, winds up in the big city. How'd you get here, and what brought you here?
Well, Newcastle, Pennsylvania is where I grew up, an hour northwest of Pittsburgh. My mom was a hairdresser, my father an industrial engineer, and I have one sister. And my mom would have my sister and I in her hair shows, oftentimes being a hairdresser. So me being tall and skinny, everyone was like, you should model, your daughter should model. So finally, when I was in high school, still tall and skinny, my mother and dad brought me into Pittsburgh to the modeling schools there. Well, it was about the same amount of money as me going to a semester of college, believe it or not. So my parents thought college was the way to go, and I went to Slippery Rock University, and I got a degree in health and physical education and a master's degree in education. And I taught school for a while, and I had a whole nother life. I actually married my high school love, and unfortunately, or fortunately for both of us, either way, we didn't stay together, and he's a lovely person, but life took other avenues. So when I was single again, I started working at Saks Fifth Avenue as a sales girl. And people would say, you should model, you should model. So I started modeling at Saks in Pittsburgh, and I worked for all the department stores. I joke and say I became the Linda Evangelista of Pittsburgh. I had short hair and I did all of the shows, and it was fabulous. So I had this dream, well, why not go to New York City? So I packed my bags and moved to New York City, and I was rudely awakened. I was in my late 20s at the time, and the agencies I saw said, oh, wow, you're way too old and your eyes are too close together. So there was nothing I could do about either one of those things. But I did start modeling on 7th Avenue as a showroom model. And I was also working at the New York Health and Racquet Club as a trainer. And the money I was making as a model was far greater than me making money as a physical trainer. And then a friend of mine at the gym said, hey, there's a camp going on. I'm going to take you to see if you can get a job there. So he takes me to this place, and who's there but Kay Mitchell? And Kay Mitchell hires me to work at her Camp Model in the summer. And I started with her. I met such great people there. Martin Snarick is one of the coaches there. Patty Hansen came to the camp. Tookie Smith came to the camp. They were
Wow.
instructors. They were instructors. And from there, Kay hired me to work at Legends. I was her receptionist. And from there, I moved over to Wilhelmina as a New Faces booking agent. I learned quite a bit there. Karen Hilton was there at the time, Fran Rothschild, and Faith Cates. And from there, I moved over to Pauline's. Pauline had a beautiful agency. She's a French woman, originally from Canada. And I learned so many great things from her, scouted for her, and ended up at Elite Model Management since 1991. And about 10 years ago, I started Karen Lee Group. So that's the long and short version of how I got to New York City.
All right. Now let me go back. You, when you modeled, you were a showroom model,
Yes,
or basically a runway model.
yes,
Now, back in those days, I think there was a big difference between models who did photography, did fashion, and did commercial type of work, then the showgirl or the showroom model or the model who walked the runway. Because I seem to remember there were two agencies that just specialized in runway girls.
yes, there were.
Why was that? Why was there such a big difference? And when did it become that every model then that was in a commercial or in a commercial ad or a beauty ad or a fashion ad, that designers wanted them on their runway? How did that happen?
Well, to my knowledge, there were two great agencies. One was Ellen Harth, and the other one was
Or
Mannequin.
Maggie McGinnis, or
Yes.
wasn't it
Um, oh, it'll come to me.
McGinnis?
Yes, yes. And they were great showroom and runway agencies. And, you know, you worked at Ford, and Ford had a lot of beautiful print girls, and many of them were blondes, and a lot of the fashion show and runway girls were darker haired girls or brown skinned girls, and tall, skinny, interesting, different looking, not necessarily your classic girl. and classic beauty. And but then I think the time of the late 80s, early 90s happened, and a lot of the designers brought a lot of the great print girls, like the supermodels of the
Yeah.
90s, the Linda, Cindy, Naomi, Christy. Those girls started doing all of the runways, and I believe it's a lot of the designers that loved those girls and brought those girls to the runways.
Yeah, I think it was the designers that made the big switch
Yeah.
because they decided if I'm going to use a girl in the ads, I'm going to use her on the runway. Before that, it wasn't like that. There were specialty girls did runways, and that was it. Uh, I want to bring up another funny thing. First of all, I went to school to be a phys ed teacher,
Oh, I
and
didn't
I
know
did
that.
2 years. It was at night school at Brooklyn College. And I realized that I was making more money modeling than I would when I graduated as a gym teacher.
Right.
So I dropped out after only 2 years. And I'll tell you about my scouting. I was never really a scout, but if I saw a pretty girl or a good looking guy, I brought him to the agency. So with the guys, I had the final say in the beginning, but I never scouted women. But when I did see a pretty girl, and I found one, and I thought, Joe, this girl is going to be terrific. They're going to love her. So I bring her in, and she meets Eileen Ford. Eileen Ford calls me and says, what am I going to do with her? I said, what do you mean? She said she has cross-eye. She's cross-eyed. So I said, that's it. I'm never bringing another girl into the
Well,
agency.
you
And
know,
that was
she
the end of
had,
my scouting days.
well, she had a great eye, and she was very specific about what she liked. So, and
So,
as a scout, you have to be. You find the talent, and then you bring them to the team, the booking team. And so many of the people on the booking board didn't always like the people
didn't
we
always
brought in.
So I wasn't alone in that. I mean,
No.
there was always somebody to, well, you had to have a unanimous decision because you wanted the whole agency to be behind them and to promote them. You didn't want anybody on the board saying, oh, I hate her. I don't like her look. Her ears are too small. Her nose is off center. You know what I'm saying? So you needed a team, right? So you brought the girls back and the team would say yes or no. Am I
Well,
correct?
well, now it has to be unanimous. Back then, in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, if the owner of the agency or the director of the
Like
agency,
Eileen.
yeah, liked the model, and a few of the top bookers liked the model, then we would give that model a try. Today, I think it's more of a unanimous decision most of the
Yeah.
time.
I think the days of Eileen and Johnny Casablancas and Wilhelmina, where they said, this is the girl, nobody questioned it. They got to
Well,
work, they promoted her.
funny enough, there would be at times John Casablancas would bring girls in, and some of the bookers wouldn't love the girl, so they'd try to say no, but it didn't always work.
That happened to me all the time. Jerry and I, when we find a girl and we thought she was nice, we'd bring her in. And of course, Eileen would look at her and said, did Jerry and Joey bring you here? And of course she said, yes. She said, you're not right for us.
Right.
Always. She always had the final say, and she always wanted to be the one to bring a beautiful girl to the agency. And if anybody else brought it, she was always lukewarm until you had to convince her. So tell me, so you were scouting, and after that, when you uh, left Elite, but you never really left Elite, you started the Karen Lee group. And also, I got to say, you wrote a book while you were doing this called Model U 101, which is all about modeling. Am I correct? Tell me about your book.
It's
And
it's a great book. I wrote it during COVID, during the pandemic. I was well, actually, when you say I have Karen Lee Group and I still work for Elite, I actually lived in the model townhouse. You know how Eileen had the townhouse for the Ford models? Well, Elite had a townhouse for the Elite models. And I lived in the bottom floor of that townhouse for 30 years until recently. And we would bring girls in from all over the world that lived in the townhouse in Midtown Manhattan. So during the pandemic, there was no one around. I think I was the only person in that house with one girl only. I decided it's time I write a little book about the business, because people always ask, how do I get my daughter or son started, and what do I have to do, and what are the, you know, qualifications.
I,
I
I
think you
read
have that book there.
I
Yeah, it's
read
sold on.
the book, and I got to say, I think it's great because it takes you step by step through the really ins and outs of the business. And if you really want to know about what's going on, I recommend you read the book. Now,
Thank you.
let me tell you a funny story. You know, I've got all these townhouses. Eileen had a townhouse. Elite had a
Yeah.
townhouse.
Yes.
The models always lived on the upper floors, and Eileen and Jerry would live on the lower floors. And in your case, you lived on the lower floors.
Yes.
You know why? Because if the girls tried to sneak out at night, they had to go by you. And, and Eileen would wake up and chase them back to bed. So that's the reason why, you know, you guys were always on the bottom floors and the models were up above. So tell me about scouting. Tell me and your group and what you do. First of all, where do you find kids that you like and that you feel should be part of which you would like to develop?
Well, I will say I feel very fortunate that I was able to scout for Wilhelmina, Pauline, and Elite Model Management for all of those years. It gave me the opportunity to travel the world, and I've been to so many places around the world, which opened my eyes up to life and that there's beauty everywhere. And that's been a really great thing, and I'm really grateful for all of that time. Since having Karen Lee Group, I don't have as much money as I did when I was traveling with larger companies, because I don't have those kinds of expenses. Well, the expenses are great, and I don't have that kind of money, but
Spencer.
I still travel and still look for talent, and I think that, you know, always, even today, we looked for classic beauties before. What's a classic beauty? You know, you look at the nose, the eyes, the facial structure, the neck, the body type, shoulders, legs, personality. Those are all the things we as scouts look for. And has it changed today? I think, yes, there's much more diversity today, which is a really good thing. The world is uh, not as small, it's larger because of the internet. And so we're looking for beauties and interesting people from all over the world. And I think, you know, that's what scouts are looking for today. Not all that much different than before, even though there were types as the years went on. You know, you had Nancy on yesterday, and she's still just such a beauty. I mean, really. And during her time, as she said, she spoke about she and two other women, they were all blondes. There was a time when blondes were happening. Now you don't see as many blondes, but I hope that we'll see people from all backgrounds, because I think that's really what the world
All right.
is.
So you go on weekends or different weekends to teach runway and stuff like that at schools around the country. And I assume while you're there, you see the models that you're teaching or working with, and those are the ones that you encourage, or maybe to come and you would help them find an agency. Am I correct?
Yes, that's what I do as a mother agent manager and a coach. I actually have a young lady I scouted at a Millie Lewis school in Charleston when she was 14 years old, and her name is Addison Sowens. And I share her with the Millie Lewis School of Charleston, and she's now 20, and she's doing very well. She's
It's
had a
very
really
beautiful.
nice, yeah, and a really nice start to her career. And that's very exciting. But, you know, I met her at 14 years old and she's now 20. So you see the time it takes to develop
Yeah.
someone.
Well, I've got to say, for all you 14-year-olds and 13-year-olds, uh, when an agency or a scout likes you, they will watch as you grow. They'll keep in touch and find out, are your braces off? Uh, how do you look now? Send me a picture. And constantly, if they really feel you've got it, it could take 4 or 5 years before you're 18 and out of school, or old enough to come to the city with your mother for 2 weeks to be tested and things like that. Am I correct? Is that pretty much the process too with young kids?
Yes, I think, you know, when you and I started in this business, or I started a little later than you, but when
Karen, a young kid.
when we started in the business, you know, there were 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds that were modeling, but we do have a law in New York that you have to be 18, and I think it's a very good law that you have to be 18 to work legally and full time.
Yeah, I think so too. It really was adapted from the law that they have in Hollywood, which is called the Jackie Cooper law, where uh, there, if you do work, they hold back so much percentage in a special bank account, so you can't be robbed of all your money, like some parents have done in Hollywood, especially Jackie Cooper's family. I guess they took all his money, so that's where the law
Wow.
originated. And, it's pretty much around the world too. I know in Europe, 16 too is the age, but in New York it's much older. So the agents really are now looking for, if they find a 16, 17-year-old, they'll watch them, they'll try to groom them. They may take them for 2 weeks in the summertime and get them around and see what they could do. Uh,
Yeah.
so I guess you're into all that. Do you find kids? Did you ever find anybody in the street, walking in the street, and go over to
Absolutely, for
really?
sure. Yes, you know, when I first years ago tried to stop someone on the street, I was a little hesitant. I was a little nervous, and I thought, wait a minute, this is my job. So I went up and I introduced myself, and I say who I work for, and I ask them if they're a model. And yes, I have found a few people and stopped a few people over the years, for sure.
I got smacked the last time I went over to a girl
But you're a guy, and you know, it's a little
and said
different for
she should
guys.
model.
It's a little different for
So I
guys.
don't do it anymore.
So you never stopped any guys and asked them to model over the years?
Yes, guys, I have. Guys, I have. Guys, I had. When I ran the men's division at Ford's, which was in the um, 70s, I guess. Yep. In the 70s, I had the best looking guys on the planet. I mean, they really were good looking guys. I used to model them after like Hollywood idols, you know. I would say that if I can't find a really good looking guy, it's not worth it. So even my, you know, my guys ranged from 18 years old all the way up till 50, you know. John, you know, Don Phillips and Bill Luke and people like that, Vasily Lambrinos, and they were all older guys, but they were all good looking.
You know,
And
Joe, that's what I like about today because it was that men could age and still model and women couldn't. But now, look, you know, you're seeing people from 18 to 70, 80 years old still modeling. And I think that's women. And I think that's a fabulous thing.
that's the truth, because there are agencies now that really represent older people, or even mostly older models that sort of retired but have been lured back into the business. I know Nadia, who, thank you, Nadia,
He's
for
our host.
allowing us to uh,
Yeah.
broadcast this. She
Yes.
is the producer and runs Era Stories, which is all about what we are talking about today and other discussions I've had in the past. Uh,
Yes. Thank you, Nadia.
and so, do you find people at these big model searches or conventions. You know, they call them conventions. I look at them as big model searches, and I find out that kids get a lot out of it. The experience and the idea of being able to compete and to be in front of a big audience of agents, and it builds their self-esteem, and it gets a lot of kids out of their shell and builds their personality. And not everyone is great to be a model or an actor, but the ones who are rise to the top. So, do you find kids there and at these conventions?
Well, I think there's so many ways to scout, and I think that hasn't changed except for finding people through Instagram and places like that. There's more and more of that today, of course, because we didn't have that then. But I absolutely find talent at conventions. And I also think that it's a great experience for people. It doesn't have to be the only way. There are other ways, but it's an excellent experience. And a lot of agents and scouts have not really liked many conventions, but I have found some great people at conventions, and it does give people confidence and self-esteem. And they're going to be competing against hundreds and thousands of people around the world anyway when they become a model, when you have castings and go-sees. So it's sort of a mini version of what really happens
Yeah.
in the business, in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you, who was the most famous model you found when you were at Elite, or became famous, or not, or even made a lot of money?
Well, we had the Elite Model Look Contest, which brought in many, many great models over the years. But for me, there was a woman, one of my first trips to Africa, there was a young woman named Oluchi Onwegba, that I scouted in West Africa at a contest we did called the Mnet Elite Face of Africa. And Oluchi has gone on to be not only a successful model, but a successful businesswoman. And I also, years ago, and you'll know this person, I went to a convention in Pensacola. And who do I see but this beautiful girl? Oh, just a beauty. And her name is Carolyn Murphy.
Ah,
And and Carolyn Murphy was with Ford,
she was. She
but
started
somehow
at Ford.
it didn't work out. So I brought her to Elite, and she is fantastic still. And she was at Elite for a short time, but didn't really stay there either. And she went on to become one of the most successful models, and
You
she's
know,
such a
that's
beauty.
funny. I'm glad you brought her up, because when she was with us, I thought she was beautiful. And she was the nicest person you ever want to meet. But we couldn't do anything with her. I mean, the bookers couldn't really get her going, like she should have. And then she did leave us and go to Elite. And then, as you say, she disappeared for a little while. And then all of a sudden, she's the talk of the town. So sometimes it takes a long time to really. I know a lot of Sonny Griffin, I remember, was doing catalog for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden Harper's Bazaar did a spread on her, and man, did she take off. It happens. It happens. It's you gotta put in time. You
Things
gotta
don't
treat
happen
it like a
overnight.
job. Am I correct?
Yes, things don't happen overnight. Many models that you see and you think, wow, all of a sudden they're famous. They've been working at it for a while. And quite honestly, to become good as a model, you have to be great in front of the camera. You have to be good on the runway. You've got to have some sense of style or gain some sense of style. You've got to have a personality. That doesn't just happen, immediately.
I got a
Maybe for some, but not for most.
We used to send a lot of kids to Europe,
Yeah.
but at that time it was Milano and Paris. Paris and Milano were the big markets. And not only that were they big markets, but we sent them to get their books in order or to get pictures. And What do you think about all that, and do you do that today?
Well, I think it's extremely important. Uh, you know, the young lady I spoke about earlier, Addison Sowens, actually, when she was 17, I showed her to some agencies, and no one, they liked her, but no one felt she was quite ready at the time. And then when she was almost 18, I brought her back again. Same thing happened, but Ford, actually Kwok, who was at Ford, thought she was fantastic. And he said, yeah, she's great, but she's going to need some travel. So I ended up sending her to Asia. She went to Singapore first, then she went to Thailand, and then she went to Malaysia, and then she came back to the United States. And Actually, Paul Rowland saw her and said, wow, she's a classic beauty like the old Ford models. And he brought her to Barcelona, and the rest is history. So I think the travel for her was really important. Whether someone goes to Asia or to Europe, it helps with style, it helps with confidence.
See, when I was at Ford, we used to send them to Europe. Once Milan and Paris, and then we sent them to Germany because Germany was a money market. They never went there for pictures. They always went there to do catalog. Germany had these huge catalogs like Otto Vassan, and the girls would work day and night on them and really come home with a lot of money. The only country that we sent girls to in Asia was Japan. Japan had a huge business at that time, but we never sent anybody to like Vietnam, the Philippines,
That has
Korea,
changed.
China,
That has changed.
and stuff like that. That's all new, you know.
That that has, yes, totally changed. But all of the markets that people go to for development can be beneficial for sure.
Ah, well, so there we go. And now you moved, which was traumatic to you, and so but you're still developing girls,
I,
right? You're still developing, and guys.
I
I
am.
noticed you have two good-looking guys
I
too.
do. Actually, I have a guy named Carson Williams who's also from South Carolina, and I met him at a Charleston Fashion Week event, and he has done very well as a young new male model. So yes, I spread my wings a little, and I've taken on a few
I
guys.
wish we had a full-length camera here so we could get you to give us a few twirls on a runway to see how it's been done. You know.
Well, look, I am one of the coaches that does coach and teach runway. There are many good people out there. I think it's about getting these kids to feel confident and really walking with confidence and feeling powerful within themselves. And it really just comes from practice, practice, and practice.
I got it. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say, or did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I'm seeing some questions here. I had to put my glasses on. What are the thoughts of model being sent into Chinese market of modeling? I think if you know the agency and it's, if your mother agent or manager knows the agency and it's a safe, reputable place, absolutely, it can be a good market for development. I think a lot of what we do as scouts, or I think what is important for us to let the parent and the model know, make sure you know the people and make sure they're going to somewhere where uh, it's safe and it's with responsible people and reputable people.
Let me say as a blanket statement, kids, your agent is there to protect you, is there to take care of you, is there to set, to discuss rates with you, to discuss what you want and what the big picture is. He's not your enemy. He works with you. And if there are guys who come on and are pigs, and shit like that, they're there to yell and scream at them and not send you there. Even though you have the choice to do whatever you want to do, we could warn you and say, don't see this person, or don't go down here, or don't do this. We are we are there to make sure that you're safe and that you're not put into any embarrassing situations. We may tell you, dress this way, keep your hair down or put it up. And we're only telling you this because that's the look and that's what's selling or what they are buying. I don't want you going around looking like a boy when they're booking girls. You've got to look you've got to be what they want, and the market dictates that.
Well, I also think it's important for models to realize it's about being their best natural self. And we
Correct.
always look for great skin, great hair, nails, in shape, healthy. I think today more than ever, a lot of the models are aware of being healthy and eating better and resting and taking care of themselves. And this is important because clients want to see a blank canvas, and that's what I look for, and I'm sure that's what many scouts and agencies look for.
I'm sure. I miss being in the thick of it, being on that booking board, which now is all on computer, and everything is recorded on the computer, and everything's in an email or an invoice that's sent out as soon as the booking's done and everything's done. So it's a different world, but it's more efficient, and I believe it's a safer place for kids to be. And another thing I've got to say, Karen, and I'm sure you do it, the mother and father are very important in the development of the kid.
Yes. The
And
support.
everything. Tell me a little about the mom and dad and the role they play.
Well, I always like to have a mom and dad, or mom or dad, or a guardian involved, because I think it's important that they know what their child is doing and where they're going and who they're going to be associated with. It keeps things safe and a lot healthier and better. So I always love a parent being supportive, but it's like a parent of kids that play sports. You don't want someone trying to be the coach, but you want them to be supportive of their child and of the team and of the people that they are involved with. So I highly recommend for parents to know what's happening.
And when kids are underage or under 18, I think we request that the parent travel with them if they do travel. Uh,
Yes.
Sometimes the parent can't travel because they're working or something like that. And so we don't really want to send them away without the parent, until they're 18 or over and can travel by themselves. Is that correct?
Yes, and like you said, and I said earlier, most markets are wanting people 16 and over, and really preferably 18. So, and even at times, a parent likes to go with an 18-year-old, and I like that, just so they can see what it's all about. And, once they know what it's all about, then the child can be on their own.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think we covered everything.
Well,
I
thank you for this, Joe.
what?
I said, thank you for this. It was fun.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sure we covered everything, and I just want to say, Karen Lee is a great teacher, a great protector, a great developer of young
Thank you.
ladies and guys, and I put my trust in her, and I wish I were younger.
So I can scout
I
you,
try
right?
to date her,
Thank you.
but I'm
And,
too
and
old.
you're not too old, Joe. And thanks for the tip on my book, Model U 101 on Amazon.
Did we ever have a fling, Karen?
No, Joe, we didn't. You
Oh,
wanted
gee.
to.
How did I miss out? Well, I want to
I,
thank
I, I,
Nadia.
I love that you're my friend and colleague. That's really wonderful.
Well, we've been together for a lot of years, a
Yes.
lot of years, and you are a great friend, and you've helped me out a lot, and I enjoy your friendship, and I treasure it, as
Thank
a
you.
matter of fact. And I want to thank Nadia and
Me as
everybody
well.
at the Era Stories team, all the guys, Muhammad, that have helped us and made this all possible. And
Thank you to them as well. And thank
Nadia,
you.
I know for years and years and years. I think in the beginning we didn't get along, but now we're getting along
How
great.
could that happen? She's such a great lady.
Well, I think she was a little too loud for me. I couldn't have a decent conversation with her without her yelling. So I think that that was our problem. But now she has calmed down a lot. She's become a different person. And I'm grateful for her remembering to talk to me about this and for us to have this collaboration. And without her, I wouldn't have had it. So thank you,
And
Nadia.
Joe, I want to also thank all those agencies I worked with because, if it weren't for Kay Mitchell and Legends, Wilhelmina, Pauline, and Elite Model Management, I mean, I wouldn't still be doing this today. And I really appreciate my time with all of them and with you as well.
That's correct. Well, thank you. And I think we're going to sign off now and hope to see you soon next week. Bye.
Okay, Joe. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.